Hello and welcome to Sprott Radio. I'm your host, Ed Coyne, Senior Managing Partner at Sprott Asset Management. I'm pleased today to welcome two first-time guests to Sprott Radio, Veronica and Gabriel Ivory. Both Veronica and Gabriel are seniors at the Texas A&M University, and they're both in the study of nuclear engineering. And I'm excited today to have them on Sprott Radio to really get their view on what's happening in the whole world of nuclear. So both Veronica and Gabriel, thank you today for joining us on Sprott Radio.
Yeah, thank you so much for having us.
Yeah, thank you.
This is the first time we're having young college students such as yourselves on Sprott Radio, and we've done close to 60 podcasts over the last few years. So before we go into today's topic of nuclear engineering and nuclear energy in general, I'd love for each of you to give our listeners a bit about your backgrounds, why you chose Texas A&M, and what got you focused on nuclear engineering. So Veronica, why don't we start with you and give us a bit of your background, if you don't mind.
Absolutely. So I'm originally from northern Minnesota, and in high school, I studied, designed, and worked on solar cells, actually. So I was very interested in chemistry and had more of an environmentalist background. Growing up in northern Minnesota, you're surrounded by beautiful lakes and forests. So I was very much aware of how humans were impacting the world around us. And I thought that solar would be a really good way to help the earth and make a difference. And then when I did come to school, I chose Texas A&M because it's an amazing university with an amazing engineering program. And I learned more. I took a lot more chemistry classes and learned more about nuclear energy and decided that that was that was kind of like the solution. So that was kind of an eye-opening moment for me.
And Gabriel, how about you? A little bit about your background and what brought you to Texas A&M and your focus on nuclear energy as well.
Yeah, so I'm originally from Louisiana, but I grew up overseas. My dad's in oil and gas, so I was exposed to energy at a young age. And I consider myself an environmentalist. So, growing up, I knew I wanted to be an engineer. I was interested in energy, and combining that with the environmentalism, renewables seemed like the obvious choice. And so when we moved back to the United States, we moved to Houston when I started 8th grade. I was obviously interested in renewables as a career, and Texas A&M was a, close to home university, very good engineering school. So I chose A&M, and it was a conversation with a professor that I had in my first semester here in a first year experience class where you just get to know a lot about the university and the engineering department in general. So I was having a conversation with that professor and, talking about what I wanted to go into, renewables. And she said that, she preferred nuclear and she just thought like overall nuclear was a better option. And so after doing some research on that, I was like, yeah, nuclear is definitely a better option. So that's kind of how I got into nuclear and just like the energy in general.
Well, with your father being in oil and gas, was he supportive? Did he debate? How was it coming home? What was the take there?
Yeah, it's not personal at all. He understands the world's need for energy, and he understands the benefits, and obviously knows that like my heart is in that environmentalist, mode, I guess. So he understood why I kind of chose that path. And we talk about it all the time. We have really good civil discussions about that. And he understands even that nuclear can be a benefit for oil production. We see what's going on in the Permian Basin, decarbonizing oil production. So, yeah, he's obviously supportive of that.
Well, I think that's good to hear. It must be some fun conversations there. And it's a great way to connect with your dad. Being the father of two myself, is anything I can do to tether myself together with my kids is always a positive. So that's great you guys have that. Well, we're going to go into what kind of brought us all together, which is the sign from College Game Day, which made this whole thing possible, I guess almost 2 months plus now ago. But before we do, you guys have also done something really cool and interesting at the university, which is created your own organization. And I believe it's called NARROW. And I'll ask you, to talk about what that actually means. Go into that a little bit. Like, what brought you to, as students with already a full workload, what brought you to creating an organization specific to nuclear energy. Talk about that a bit. And I believe, Veronica, you're the president. So we'll start with you. Why don't you give us a bit of a background on that?
Okay, so yeah, it's NARRO. NARRO is the Nuclear Advocacy Resource Organization. And it actually started about a year ago now. I was doing a study abroad, and it was the first time I was around other students who weren't engineers, honestly, because I immediately came into school and went straight to engineers. So a lot of like-minded individuals. And so I had the chance to have some conversations with people outside of engineering. And when they asked what I was majoring in, I got some like kind of shocked looks. And one of the girls I was talking to actually said, "You are like so nice. Like, why do you want to kill people?" And I was like, that is not what I do at all. And we ended up talking for a few hours, and I like gave her my whole spiel about like what exactly we do and why I think it is so amazing. And she ended up walking away from that conversation like with a changed mind. So I think that was the first time I realized that it's definitely not an engineering issue. It's not a physics issue. It's a people problem. And I like talking to people. I like having good informed conversations with people. And I think other people are willing to hear and they just don't know yet. So I came home from study abroad and was pretty determined to kind of get the word out. And then it wasn't until at the beginning of this semester that I actually launched NARRO. And then like 2 weeks.
Basically like the same time.
The same time.
What was the whole sign? So with the sign, I kind of had this feeling a couple of years back, like starting to get into nuclear energy or nuclear engineering and just learning about the benefits of it. And the more and more I learned, the more I felt like, why aren't we talking about this all the time? Like, This is something that can benefit everybody. This is something that has a bad reputation. You know, how can we change that? How can we bring this into casual conversation? So it was August 30th, and college game day was coming to A&M, and it was the first week of like the regular season of college football. And college game day is watched by millions of people around the country. And when it's in your backyard, when it's at your school, like a lot of people are there. You know, I'm sure you've seen the crowds. Obviously, there's a lot of people watching. So I decided that I was going to make a sign, and I needed just like something that was simple. And so I just thought like, well, I like nuclear energy. I love nuclear energy. So I'm just going to write that on the sign. So wrote that with the help of my girlfriend. And then I woke up at 4 a.m. to go.
Quick pause. So we have something at A&M called Midnight Yell.
Okay.
The night before a big game, everyone goes to the stadium at midnight, and we practice our yells.
Fantastic.
So
we all went to Midnight Yell at midnight, obviously the night before. And that takes a while. That goes for about an hour.
Yeah.
Oh my God. Just an hour of yelling.
An hour of yelling, hour of practicing yelling.
When you're an Aggie, you don't mind it.
Yeah. You're making me miss college again, which is many years ago, but
yeah. So this lasts about an hour.
So it's already very late.
It's already very late at night. It's 1 a.m. And then I get home. It's about 2 a.m. before I even go to sleep. I wake up at 4 a.m. I get there at around 5 a.m. and there's already a pretty big crowd, and kind of rush to the front, and I get a good spot. I'm holding the sign, and obviously it's before like they're actually filming anything. And some people around me are like, oh, what is the sign about nuclear energy? Like
right.
every sign there is about the game or football, and then there's just the one side that says I heart nuclear energy. So people are kind of taken aback by it. And yeah, so I had a couple of conversations with people, and then obviously when the cameras start rolling, I get the chance to go to the front because somebody on set was like, I want to see the signs. The signs are my favorite part of game day. So I kind of just bulldozed through a couple of people, got to the front, and showed my sign.
I guess that earned you the right to be the VP then. Is that?
that was kind of my audition. I was
there
like, I do care about nuclear advocacy. Let me show you. So I get there, cameras roll. It's about a 3-hour show, and I'm there basically the whole time. And after I get out, she had texted me how to go. And I was like, I had a few good conversations with people.
I have the text. You said, I talked to 3 people. And I was so over the moon. I was so like,
I was like, oh my God,
3 people. Yeah. And then obviously, I think literally like 2 hours later.
Yeah, basically couple hours later, everything blew up. And
then I was like, this is a lot more than three people.
More than a couple people.
And it was really cool.
That's fantastic. And if I read this correctly, undergrad of the year from this sign, is that, did I read that right?
That was a huge surprise. That was basically, was awarded that a couple months after. And yeah, that was something that the department does every year. And I was just like really shocked and surprised to get that, but that was really awesome.
Super cool. Definitely deserved.
I'm sure Gabriel is getting harder to spend time with all this fame he's gotten. You have to gently remind him every once in a while that you are the president, in fact, of this organization. He's
actually really good. When Narrow first got started, people kept coming up to me and being like, did you start this because of Gabe? And I was like, no. And he'll correct them. So he's actually really good about it. He's like, no, this is her thing. I'm the vice president. She started this before I did the sign thing.
Really cool. Really cool. Well, it sounds like a lot of this stuff, and we get this at our level, talking to big institutions and investors. The misconception of nuclear energy is just permeates, regardless of people's education level, their experiences. It's still just sort of the boogeyman. I think half of all the superheroes in the world were exposed to nuclear, fallout or nuclear waste and got their superpowers. So it's really a misnomer out there. So what are you guys doing to really help set the record straight, help people understand the benefits of nuclear, all those different things? What are some of the things you guys are working on right now that could be interesting?
Narrow, first and foremost, in my opinion, is a marketing organization because, like I've said and I'll say a million times, this is not an engineering issue. This is a solved issue in terms of engineering and physics. This really is a people problem. It's a marketing problem. And so the sign was actually the second big thing that we did. The first thing that we did right away was we did a survey to over 400 A&M students and kind of just got a baseline idea of where people's minds were at. And then, of course, the sign blew up, which was amazing and kind of gave us more of a platform. And then since then, we've been doing a lot of advocacy work on just changing the narrative about nuclear energy. And if you've seen it in this light your whole life, every movie, book, everything that watching The Simpsons, whatever, everything that you've ever seen shows this scary green glowing goo. You have no reason to believe that that's not what it is. So we're just changing this image that people have in their minds.
Yeah. And so going back to the surveys, it was really telling the results that we got. A lot of people thought that solar, wind, hydro were all encapsulating cleaner than nuclear. They'd rather live near a hydro plant or a wind farm than they would a nuclear plant. All of the things that we kind of know how people feel about nuclear, but it just went to show us that our work is cut out for us. This is something that we really need to do. So some of the activities that came out of that, we went around campus and we passed out candies, little Dum Dum lollipops with facts about nuclear energy attached to them.
Cool.
Yeah. And so we passed out over 500 of those. So we had 100 people scan the QR code, but a bunch of people came up to us after they read the fact and they were like, wait, is this true? I didn't even know this about nuclear. And so we didn't necessarily expect that, but it was really awesome to see just in real time, people's minds changing about nuclear.
Well, that's amazing. I mean, I would love to see you guys expand on that a bit outside of the campus or go to other campuses, and I guess that gets me to the next question. You're both seniors. Correct me if I'm wrong, but you're both seniors at Texas A&M.
Yep.
Correct.
Is the next step a graduate program, or is it to go out into the working world, or is it to expand on your organization? What's next for you guys as you go into your final semester of school?
I can definitely say from my perspective, the organization is always going to be there. There's always going to be a need to talk about nuclear and to remind people that it is the good energy source that it is. As far as, my plans after graduation, I'm currently an intern for Westinghouse working on the Vinci reactor design. I'm really interested in that. There's a lot of things out there. There's the whole nuclear fuel cycle that I'm interested in. Core design is obviously something that I'm passionate about. So there's a ton out there. There's a lot of stuff I'm interested in. And, we'll see. A lot is even just come from stuff like this.
Well, I want to expand on some of your interests in a moment. But before we do that, I want to go back over to Veronica and kind of the same question. What's next for you once you graduate from Texas A&M?
we need more energy, not less energy.
Mm-hmm.
2 summers ago, I had the chance to spend the summer in Tanzania, and I lived in a like chicken wire window hut, and it very rarely had electricity or running water. And so I kind of got like a firsthand summer experience of what it's like to live with very intermittent power. I mean, the community is obviously very affected by it, but this is a large reality for most of the world. And I think energy is a human right, and everyone deserves to have energy. And I think that the absolute best way, the most safe, clean, reliable way to get them energy is nuclear, hands down.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm very passionate about it, whether it's through engineering or through advocacy. Either way, we just need to get the job done. In one of our senior design classes, our professor talked about paper reactors versus real reactors. So engineers tend to focus a lot on design, and they focus on concepts instead of sometimes actually getting reactors going. So I'm more interested in real reactors. And if there's people stopping that from happening, if it's policy stopping that from happening, then that's what I'm more interested in.
It sounds like you might have a future on Capitol Hill. So I don't know how political you want to get, but
as political as I need to get, I can do it.
I think you hit it right on the head, though, when you said it's a people problem. It's a great way to think about it because, spending time over in what you said, Tanzania.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, spending time over there, you realize that we over here in the States, we talk a lot about clean, efficient energy, but they just want energy.
Right.
Right. And if something like a small modular reactor or other types of technologies out there, which I want to talk about in a moment, could bring that to the forefront in a much quicker, cleaner, sustainable way, man, that would be a game changer.
Right.
Because so much of the world doesn't even have a single light bulb or refrigerator in their house yet.
Right.
So it's amazing. We're all focused on making sure our Wi-Fi runs 24/7, but there's much more basic needs than that I think nuclear could be part of. So that's very exciting.
Yeah. And you had mentioned, the kind of the same point in the episode with Zion Lights. And I thought that was a really, it's a very true point. Like we asked these countries to, kind of leapfrog and take on these new clean technologies. But like she said, like, how dare you? Like there's a lot out there that needs to be addressed. And
you're not going to choose a car brand for your kids to drive if you've never heard of it before, because you don't know if it's safe. You don't know if it's reliable. You don't know anything about it. And what is unknown is just automatically like off the table.
Dangerous.
Yeah, it's dangerous. And I mean, it's a thing for a reason. There's a reason that humans feel that way. And so if we do get the message out, I think advocacy and engineering and clean, reliable energy for all go all hand in hand. So I think it's very important to get the message out.
Couldn't agree more. And that's partly what we're doing today. Gabriel, you talked about some of the technologies you're really interested in. And I know you probably can't go too deep into what you're doing with Westinghouse. But having said that, what are some of the technologies out there from both your points of view as students? You're kind of on the forefront of what's happening and what the professors are talking about in this space and in engineering in general. What are some of the more dynamic or interesting things out there that are getting you excited that you want to share with the listeners today as relates to nuclear energy and what's happening right now in the industry?
When I think of technologies that I'm interested in, two immediately come to mind. And the kind of connecting point between these two, they're what makes a industry that is already sustainable and environmentally friendly even more sustainable and environmentally friendly. So I'm very interested in nuclear desalination because when I was young, when I was in 5th grade, the author Linda Sue Park, I believe, who wrote A Long Walk to Water, which is a story about a South Sudanese refugee and his struggles with water scarcity and, coming to America. And so that really hit home. And also hearing about the Flint, Michigan water crisis, those were two things that stuck to me at a young age. So I've always been interested in water security. And so when I heard that, nuclear power can be used to desalinate water, I was like, this is so awesome. That was one of the things I was like, why aren't we talking about this all the time?
Right.
One of the things I learned about. And then the other one is a breeder reactor. So something that can close the nuclear fuel loop, if you will. I I understand why they're not licensed in the United States, but I think or for commercial purposes, I guess. But I think it's just like such a cool technology that the fact that we can create more fuel than we use. Like, I think that's an insane concept when you think about it.
I think we have a unique perspective as senior undergrads because our majority of our classes right now are different companies, different speakers coming in from all over the country, and we get visitors from other countries as well. But once you hit senior year, it's like, okay, you know what you need to know. Now let's hear about how people are applying what you know to real world situations. Right now it's a crazy time. Pretty much every single week we have at least one startup come in or a company that's pretty well established, but they have a new reactor design idea. Yeah, we had engineers from Ghana come in, and it's part of the first program, getting SMRs deployed in Ghana, which is so cool. That was probably so far my favorite visitors this year.
You guys are the future, obviously, and I'm not saying that in any kind of pandering way. The reality is 3 Mile Island's being reopened, right, and operating, and they brought over 1,000 nuclear engineers back on site to get that going again. And if it's not like people like yourselves studying this and focusing on this, we're going to have some issues, right? So I think you guys are actually at the top of the food chain right now as it relates to our future, as it relates to all things nuclear, from a design standpoint, from a consumption standpoint, from a people standpoint of getting the news out there. I think what you guys are doing is nothing short of spectacular. Let's go back to the sign for a second. I can't help myself on this. Where is the sign right now? Is it in your dorm? Is it at the Smithsonian? Like, what's happening with it?
It's back in my apartment. It actually has a battle scar that I'll tell you about.
Okay, yeah, let's hear it.
About a month ago, Veronica and I and another friend of ours, Harrison, went to Austin, Texas for their college game day when they played against Georgia. And we were there kind of operating low profile because, we're Aggies, they're Longhorns. We didn't want to raise any concerns. So we were in the crowd, and then it got really chaotic very early on. And so it was like a mosh pit for like 6 hours straight, basically. And I'm holding onto the sign like the entire time. And eventually somebody like pushed me over and we fell down onto like a barricade. And as I was like falling down, I was holding the sign and I literally felt it rip.
No.
I guess it caught on to something. That was a really chaotic morning. I've got stories to tell about that one.
Well, I think you guys have gone beyond this, right? I mean, if I'm reading this stuff correctly, you guys have these towels showing up at different campuses now about nuclear energy is clean energy. I mean, what is going on out there?
So NARO is hoping to spread from just A&M to all college students because, like you said, we are the future. And I think it's a very positive future. I think a lot of college students are very open-minded in general. I think that's just a quality all college students by nature have. And our generation didn't grow up with such a
hard anti-nuclear sentiment.
Exactly. We more grew up with the climate crisis is like right up front in our face. And so I think any solution to that, people are very open to hearing about. And obviously college students are going into the workforce. And the sign has been probably the craziest connection between all these schools because anywhere that college game day goes, so does nuclear advocacy. So pretty cool.
I love it. Well, have you started conversations with other schools as far as expanding your ground zero as far as chapter number 1 for NARO, but have other schools approached you about starting a chapter? Where are you in that process? Because that could be a full-time job in itself, I'd imagine.
Yeah, not yet.
We're still a very young organization.
Mm-hmm.
Very open to it, though, if anyone's listening. If anyone wants to reach out.
Hopefully more than a few family and friend members will listen, but we'll find out about that.
Whatever university is out there listening.
Well, to that point, how can someone get involved with NARO, or how can someone follow the work you guys are doing and what you guys are passionate about and follow your careers? And how can we keep this message going? What are some of the things you'd recommend people do, or how can they tap in or get a hold of you too?
Yeah, our LinkedIn is very active. It's a nuclear advocacy resource organization just on LinkedIn. We have a website, but we're going through kind of a remodeling of that. Anything we post is pretty much going to be on LinkedIn exclusively. And, I think we'd have a lot more capabilities for expanding beyond just Texas A&M after we graduate.
Mm-hmm.
So that's definitely where you can reach us, the LinkedIn, and then our personal LinkedIns. I'm Gabriel Ivory, Veronica and Gabriel.
And is the LinkedIn page just narrow, or what is the LinkedIn page? How does someone just types in NARO?
No, just a Nuclear Advocacy Resource Organization, and then it should come up like number one.
Got it. Okay, great. And I always like to ask this, because I don't ask all the right questions all the time. Is there anything that you wanted to convey to the listeners today also that I didn't ask or give you the opportunity to talk about? Veronica, why don't we start with you? Anything else you'd want to leave our listeners with?
I think that a lot of your listeners are probably pro-nuclear already, but I would say get talking about it. Even if you are or you're not, get talking about it, get learning about it. We can't do anything without these conversations.
And how about you, Gabriel? Anything on top of that, just as far as spreading the word?
Yeah, I think if there's something that you're passionate about and there's something that you believe in fundamentally, care about it wholeheartedly. Like, there's a lot of people that care about stuff kind of, pardon my French, half-assed maybe. I don't know. But if, like I said, like if there's something out there, because you never know where it'll take you. You never know what kind of conversation you'll have. You never know what you'll spark. So.
Well, this isn't the end. This is clearly the beginning for both of you. I'm really excited to watch how your guys' careers and lives expand from this. I fully expect to hear from you both. As you get out into the world, please don't be strangers to us at Sprott and also to just all your colleagues. I think this is really cool what you guys are doing. I started off just reading about the sign, and the more I read about the two of you and the work you're doing and really started to uncover NARO, I think it's awesome. And I think our listeners are going to find it awesome. And I really wish you guys both much success as you approach your final semester, which is amazing, I'm sure, to both of you that you're at your final semester. But I wish you tons of success with that and best of luck with all that. So thank you both again for taking some time out of your very busy schedules, I'm sure, to join us today on Sprott Radio.
Yeah, thank you so much for having us.
Yeah, well, I wish you all the best, guys, and thank you, listeners. Once again, I'm Ed Coyne, and you're listening to Sprott Radio.
This podcast is provided for information purposes only from sources believed to be reliable. However, Sprott does not warrant its completeness or accuracy. Any opinions and estimates constitute our judgment as of the date of this material and are subject to change without notice. Past performance is not indicative of future results. This communication is not intended as an offer or solicitation for the purchase or sale of any financial instrument. Any opinions and recommendations herein do not take into account individual client circumstances, objectives, or needs, and are not intended as recommendations of particular securities, financial instruments, or strategies. You must make your own independent decisions regarding any securities, financial instruments, or strategies mentioned or related to the information herein. This communication may not be redistributed or retransmitted in whole or in part or in any form or manner without the express written consent of Sprott. Any unauthorized use or disclosure is prohibited. Receipt and review of this information constitutes your agreement not to redistribute or retransmit the contents and information contained in this communication without first obtaining express permission from an authorized officer of Sprott.